Hey guys, it's Libby. Welcome to my couch. It's the end of the year. I'm doing a book haul, comprehensive year-long book haul, and I'm sitting in like an upright chair in front of some bookshelves, just smacked of effort, which I'm not interested in engaging in right now. So I'm reclining on my couch. I got a blanket, I got hot chocolate. Let's talk about the books I got in 2021. So I'm going to start off with my craft-related books, which will not be going onto the normal onto my literature bookshelves. They'll be going onto my hobbies shelf. So this may be the only time you see them. First one is The Queen's Servants, Gentlewoman's Dress at the Accession of Henry VIII by Caroline Johnson, edited by Jane Malcolm Davies and Nina Michaela. I'll try to get it without a glare. So Jane and Nina are the two people who run Tudor Tailor, which is a company about recreating and enabling others to recreate 16th century English dress. So their biggest publication, which is just called The Tudor Tailor, really starts in like the 1530s and 40s. And so this book and its companion, The King's Servants, are covering the earlier part of the 16th century. And they're a lot shorter. Let's see, this one's about 50 pages. And so the information that this text is based on is drawn from the very precise records that the court kept of clothing allotments to the upper servants of the royal family. So we still have records of who received what garments, which can give us some information about like what garments sort of went together, with precise information about what the fabric was, how much it cost, and what that person's role was within the royal household. So we've got here an illustration of Mistress Zuwash, gentlewoman to Margaret, Queen of Scots, wearing the tawny damask gown edged with black velvet provided for her to take to Scotland in June 1503. She also received a tawny cloth gown, cloth being a type of wool, I think. Was cloth cotton? I don't think they would have made a gown out of cotton. A black camlet kirtle, linens, ribbons, and pins, costing in all £7, 12 shillings, 1 pence. So the first half of this book is about the inventory of like what these ladies received, and then the second half is, and also, you know, the sort of conclusions about 16th century English dress that we can draw from it. And then the second half is patterns and instructions for constructing your own garments. And the pages are very glossy, so it's hard to, there we go. There we go. My other crafting book is about knitting. It is Centenary Stitches, which is edited by Elizabeth Lovick, but this is just a collection of knitting patterns, which were created by different knitters. This book is the byproduct of the independent film Tell Them of Us, which I haven't actually seen, but it is set in World War I, and it's it's an independent film, so they didn't have a huge budget, so they sort of outsourced a lot of knitting projects to like actually not just local knitters, but like the international knitting community for people who wanted to figure out how to recreate early 20th century knitwear, and then since they had like figured out how to recreate sweaters and things based off of a photograph or through interpreting period knitting patterns, which, as someone who has worked with Victorian knitting patterns, I can tell you sometimes are wild. They turned all their hard work into a book. It is printed on like normal paper, so it's not like the highest quality stuff, but you can still see pretty well what this stuff is supposed to look like. Yeah, this has garments. It's mainly like women's sweaters, hats, and scarves. There is some menswear and some children's wear as well. Okay, my next lot of books I got at the Reston Used Bookstore. Reston is my hometown, so when I went back to visit my family, you gotta stop in at the Reston Used Bookstore. So the first things I got were a couple of plays. I got Edwin Albee's The Goat, or Who is Sylvia? Not Edwin, Edward. Albee is most famous for his play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but this one also won the Tony for Best Play, apparently. I don't know that much about it. My family has built up a lot of credit at the Rest in Use bookstore by donating our old books, so all the books that I got from the used bookstore were free, so I had slightly lower standards. I believe this is a play about a man who is in love with a goat. I didn't think it would make sense for my craft books, but for my literature, I am as always going to give you the first sentence. And the first sentence of Who is Sylvia is, what time are they coming? The second sentence is no response. And the other play is an actual play book copy of A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. Classic 20th century American play. Its first line, it actually has over a page of scene description. But the first actual line of dialogue is, "Hey Stella!" And then I also picked up several novels. First one, Catherine Valente's Palimpsest. The back cover description about this is very vague. Also, I feel like, I've read some of her other works and they don't lend themselves well to being described in a paragraph. This is about a couple of people, Oleg, a New York locksmith, the beekeeper November, Ludovico, a binder of rare books, and a young Japanese woman named Sei. They come to the magical land of Palimpsest and find themselves. With Cavalente, you kind of just have to take a leap of faith and you are generally rewarded. The first sentence of this is, on the corner of 16th Street and Hieratica, a factory sings and sighs. Next up, we've got another 20th century classic. This is The End of the Affair by Graham Greene. So Greene is more famous for his sort of like thriller spy novels like Our Man in Havana. This is a little bit more domestic. I believe it's about a man who is hired by another man to investigate his wife. The second man thinks that his wife is having an affair, and the man who he is hired to investigate the affair is the man that his wife is having an affair with. Did that track? The first sentence is, a story has no beginning or end. Arbitrarily, one chooses that moment of experience from which to look back or from which to look ahead. And then one more that I at some point put on my Goodreads to read list, and I'm sure had good reasons, but I now don't remember what they are. This is Birdsong by Sebastian Faulks. Sebastian Faulks, I believe, did a trilogy about war and interwar French people, and this is the World War I volume in that trilogy. It's probably very sad. I know it's been adapted to film, but I don't think that film was very good. First sentence is, the Boulevard du Cange was a broad, quiet street that marked the eastern flank of the city of Amiens. So that's it for the used bookstore haul. The rest of these are ones that I received for my birthday and Christmas from various family members. They are very good about only getting me books that I definitely want. So I do actually know a lot more about these books than about the ones I actually bought myself. So the first one is Sweep, the Story of a Girl and Her Monster by Jonathan Auxerre. Auxier? Which syllable should be French? This is a middle grade novel that is set in a fantasy Victorian London. Our heroine Nan is an orphaned chimney sweep. She's a child. And one day she thinks she's going to die because the chimney she's cleaning has caught fire, but she finds herself she wakes up miraculously not dead, and now she has a golem friend. And then they have adventures. The first sentence is, there are all sorts of wonderful things a person might see very early in the morning. Okay, let's do some more fantasy. I finally hold in my hands Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Of course I read, and of course because I read, I absolutely loved Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, her debut novel, along with its companion short story collection, The Ladies of Grace Adieu. And it's been quite a while since that book came out. After it was published, Susanna Clarke was diagnosed with some sort of unpleasant chronic illness. And it seemed like she was never going to write again. So we are all very blessed to have this book in our lives. From what I've heard, the less you know going into this, the better. Our main character, Piranesi, lives in a house which appears to be the entire world. Like, it's a massive house and it's the only thing he knows, and also someone else also lives in the house mysteriously. I don't know where I got this impression, but I feel like this is not confirmed to not be in the same world as Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which is a sort of fantasy version of Napoleonic era Europe. One thing I gotta say is that, like, I'm surprised at how short it is. Like, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell was, what, 900 pages? This one is under 250. So a lot shorter, but, you know, I'm not gonna complain. I'm just glad we have it, and I hope Susanna's doing okay. The first sentence is, when the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the there's a comma missing. There should be a comma after the word hall. In English, I'm an English teacher, so I have to explain this to people. In English, anytime you start a sentence with something other than the subject, unless you're in some very rare inversion cases, you need to put a comma before the subject. Anyway, when the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule to witness the joining of three tides. A lot of those words were capitalized. Okay, now let's do some nonfiction. David got me, no surprises here, John McWhorter. Words on the Move, Why English Won't and Can't Sit Still, like literally. This is McWhorter's book about the fascinating and natural changes that a language goes through. I'm hoping that this book will give me some fuel for my fight with my mom about whether lay and lie still need to be distinguished in modern English. They don't. Also, lie is already a word which means to tell an untruth. We don't need it to be the intransitive of lay. Lay can be both transitive and intransitive. I can figure out if it's transitive or intransitive based on whether or not it has a freaking direct object. These are the things that I fight about with my mother. I suppose there are worse things. The first sentence of the introduction is, no one minds that today the clouds are neither in the same position nor the same shapes they were yesterday. Mom. And then a book that I already know what TBR it's going to go on. For my Jane Austen July TBR, I've got Claudia L. Johnson's Jane Austen, Women, Politics, and the Novel. I believe I first heard about this book from Ron Litt, who, if you don't know Ron Litt, boy did you miss out. So she was several years ago now, she made really great analytical videos about mainly Georgian literature. Well, we hopped into the 19th and 20th century sometimes. Then mysteriously she stopped making videos and set them all to private. Now, I believe, last time I checked, she had unprivated several of those, so you can still see some of her videos, which I highly recommend. So I think the subtitle explains it pretty well. This is a feminist look at the works of Jane Austen. The first sentence, it is... it opens with some quotes from a letter of Jane Austen and Northanger Abbey, but Johnson's first sentence is, although Jane Austen's reputation has been secure since the mid-19th century, she has remained one of the great anomalies of literary history. And now let's wind the clock way back. The earliest thing on my in my haul is Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda. My main man, Snorri. This is a, I believe, 13th century, it was written in the 13th century, but of course based on much older stories. telling of Norse mythology. The Norse from the north. Yeah, Thor, Loki, Freya, all them having a wild time. The first sentence is, in the beginning, comma, they do have a comma, I appreciate that. Almighty God created heaven and earth and all that pertains to them. The second sentence is, lastly he created two people, Adam and Eve, and from them came clans whose descendants multiplied and spread across the whole world. So, very Christianized interpretation of Norse mythology. Next, we've got kind of actually some more mythology, if we're willing to expand that definition. This is Omeros by Derek Walcott. Now, this is a Jamaican retelling of the Odyssey. So Omeros is, of course, Homer. So normally I am not really about retellings of classic literature. I feel like, you know, in 95% of cases, I would rather just reread the original. I'm making an exception here, one, because Derek Walcott did win the Nobel Prize in Literature, so it can't be all bad. And also, I don't really like the Odyssey that much. So I'm not worried about my beloved story of Odysseus being ruined, and I'm happy to see a different take on the tale. So like the Odyssey, this is a book in verse. I did take a look at it to try to determine what's going on exactly with the verse. I think it's just sort of free form. There isn't rhyme, and I could not sort out any meter. That doesn't mean there isn't one, but in my cursory perusal, I didn't find one. And I was going to maybe read this month. In case you guys don't know, I'm extremely behind on my Goodreads challenge, and I was just trying to get through as many books as I could this month, and I was like, aha, book in verse. Fewer words on the page, we can get through it faster. So I read the first couple pages of this, and I cannot get through it faster than I can a normal prose book. Like, it's poetry, so there's fewer words on a page, but the poetry is fairly dense, and like you do have to be paying attention to what's going on. You can't just sort of fly through it. The first sentence is a quotation, or is dialogue. This is how one sunrise we cut down them canoes. And then last one, which is the biggest one, so I put it in the bottom of the pile, is what they're calling the Contract with God trilogy by Will Eisner. Subtitled Life on Dropsy Avenue. I think of this as Will Eisner's New York trilogy. Don't know where I got that name. But yeah, so this is a collection of his three graphic short story collections. A Contract with God, A Life Force, and Dropsy Avenue, set on the, I believe, fictional Bronx street of Dropsy Avenue. I have read A Contract with God, so I had a copy of the first book, but David, who is also a Will Eisner fan, wanted to give me the complete trilogy in this lovely edition. So I will do my best to read you the first sentence from each of the three books. So there's the title page for the first short story. And it begins, all day the rain poured down on the Bronx without mercy. And then A Life Force starts with, who knows why all the creatures of the earth struggle so to live. And Dropsy Avenue begins. In the beginning, there should be a comma here. What is wrong with the world? The houses clustered at the intersections where the spider web of roads crossed. In case you didn't pick up on from the first sentences, this is a very depressing series of books. So there you go, my haul for the year. And I'm very pleased that once again I have acquired a sufficiently small number of books that I can just do them all in one video. Thank you all very much for watching and have a very happy new year.